Aha, mateys! Welcome to Pirate Chronicles Naval Action, Episode 9, Crazy Gulf. Now, the reason this episode is called Crazy Gulf, apart from the oh-so-hilarious pun, is that most of the action here takes place in the Gulf of Honduras, and obviously I'm one of the crazy pirates, and this is where we've all been operating the last week or so. If you watched the last episode, you know I set up outposts in Ben Salem, or Ben Salem. And if you're familiar with the EU PvP server, you'll know that in the Gulf of Honduras here is Belize. And Belize is really now become the capital of the British. KPR is its official capital, which has the, all the things that the capital does. But in fact, most of the British have moved to Belize. And KPR is sort of populated by sort of newer players who haven't really yet realised that all their mates have moved, which is a bit of a problem for them, which I'll talk a bit about later in this episode. Now, what you won't know, but what you can see here is that I've got a surprise now, and I actually went back to Mortimer Town and grabbed one. I just thought it was worth it. I got fed up of running around in the smaller ships. The Renegade wasn't really up to scratch. So I really needed a surprise down here. There's such great ships for this kind of play. It's got 2 bow chasers, it's got 4 stern chasers. It's really, really fast. It can turn okay if you fit it right. And it's got a lot of crew on it. Especially if you use medium cannons, you've got some spare screws. So it's really, really good for boarding. I haven't opened up many slots on it yet, but it really is a really great ship for this. So it was worth a little trip to MT and then back, sort of semi-AFK sail, just to pick up a surprise. And I can go for targets like this frigate, which I've tagged right outside Banaka Freeport. Now, with the recent patch changes, the speed mods, in fact all the mods, have been nerfed quite heavily now, so this means it's much more difficult to get your ship going up to this 15 knot speed cap. But it's still worth pointing out that you still get a big benefit from putting speed mods on a ship, even if you go beyond that 15 knot speed cap. Now the reason is one, obviously you can put more hull repairs, rig repairs and rum in your cargo hold, which is going to give you a big advantage. You can put bigger cannons on and still you can hit this 15 knots. But perhaps more importantly, if you have a ship that's, say, capable of going 17 knots, it may be capped at 15 knots, but it's still going to accelerate like a 17 knot ship. So it's still going to reach its maximum ship much, much more quickly. And perhaps most importantly is that you're going to be sailing at a faster speed at all those different sailing points. So if you've got speed mods on, you may be capped at 15 knots, but at the other sailing points where you're not reaching that cap, you're still going to be sailing a lot faster. So it's still worth putting these speed mods on. And this is what makes the surprise so good, because it sails so well at all those different sailing points. So if you have got those speed mods on, you're likely to be outpacing your opponents at many, many different sailing points. And that's what's such a great ship, and that's what makes it so well suited to capturing larger ships such as this one. Now, having said that, I will say that I do actually approve of this change. I think that the modules were a bit overpowered. I think the percentage advantage they gave you was too high. This levels the playing field out a bit, makes it much more difficult to build ships that can reach that top speed. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I haven't really tried it out yet. All the PvP that you see in this video is pre the nerf to those speed mods. Now, this surprise I'm using here doesn't have all those speed mods on it. I mostly play solo. I'm in a very small clan, so I don't have loads of resources and loads of money. I can't really afford to be putting boven wings and crooked hull and stuff on a surprise. So this one does actually have copper plating on it. It's an old ship, and it was put on there in the days where they were actually relatively cheap. And were quite common, but they're actually quite expensive now. It does have the Gazelle bow figure. They're pretty cheap now. That's only 20 combat marks, I believe, so that anyone can put those on. Now, it's the Bermuda Cedar one. I've only put £6 mediums on instead of going up to the £9-pounders on the main gun deck. So that gives me a speed, well, with hull repairs and rig repairs and some run, a speed approaching 15 knots, probably about something like 14.75. So not that quick, but still faster than most ships out there. And you can see it's fast enough to be catching at this frigate quite easily. Now, the perceptive ones among you would have noticed that this ship, as well as being badly damaged, he's committed the cardinal sin of not replenishing his crew in the open world. You saw there he's only got 198 crew on this frigate, so he's quite badly undercrewed. So that leaves him very open to being boarded, and obviously means that his guns aren't going to be loading as fast as he would like. So he's put himself in a difficult position simply by not replenishing his crew when he was in the open world. The lack of armour, I'm not going to sink him anyway, so that really doesn't make much difference to me, but the fact that he hasn't replenished his crew has given me a crucial advantage. Now you can see I forwarded the battle here. It was, you know, the usual shenanigans. He did manage to get a few more hits on me. Look, I've probably had to repair my sails a couple of times, but his sails, look, they're down to 49%. So it's about time I boarded him. And as you probably know if you've seen the other episodes, I'm absolutely terrible at this boarding. I really haven't got the knack to it. I've really struggled to get these ships. I do my boarding prep there, and I try this new tactic, which I call the head-on collision. And there you go, that's quite effective at stopping ships short. Now I've done my boarding prep, and now all I'm doing is waiting for the G to come up. And I'm desperately rolling the camera around, and there it is. And the boarding starts. Now he's still got quite a lot of crew, but as you can see I've got Marines, a lot more muskets, a lot more men, so this should be quite comfortable. Now, I'm not going to go into great amount of detail into this boarding game and the mechanics and how it works, but I have read up a little bit about it, and I have got a sort of better understanding of it. Now, the long and the short of it is, if you're outnumbering your opponent, then you really want to be attacking, because that can end it really, really quickly. Now, attack works pretty well against every defence except defend, in which case it's pretty disastrous, and it uses up a huge amount of preparation. So if you fail to get your attack off, that can be bad, but if you do get an attack off, then you're going to win the boarding if you've got superior numbers. You can see I'm trying to get it off here, but I don't quite have enough preparation on that last one, so I had to brace. There, I got it off, just hit it just before it ends, and that one attack is enough to win the entire boarding game. But I really would recommend you have a look at the guides there on the Game Lamps forum. There's actually quite a few little guides there now, and it's well worth a read. And if you don't understand this boarding game, you really must read that. It took me long enough, but I've noticed a big difference now. I understand a bit more about the mechanics and how they work against each other. Now I'm going to take this ship. He's got a lot of sugar on it, so I'm going to destroy that, and I don't really want those small carriages either. I'll take those hull repairs. I'll take that run. But I don't want those, so I'll destroy those. They don't seem to have disappeared. Now I'll assign a few crew, because I want to take that ship. Confirm. There you see the pirate flags coming up on the frigate there. And we'll leave the battle. And so that frigate's now mine. I shall incorporate it as part of my fleet. The first thing I'll do is replenish my crew, and I'll take that back to Bensler. Maybe I'll use it, most probably I'll put it on sale and sell it. Now you can see I've stopped off in Banaka. I just wanted to have a look here and see what was on the frigate. Now the first thing I'll do is I'll repair the ship. Now you can see it didn't destroy the stuff that I thought I destroyed it when it was in the hold. It was in the hold all the time, slowing me down. So I want to get rid of that. Now I'm in the port. I may as well sell it. Okay, 5,000 gold for that. And sell the sugar. 102 each. Okay, well I got 18,000 for that, so I'm glad I didn't destroy it now. But it didn't. That didn't seem to work. I had the option to destroy it there in the battle instance, but it didn't destroy it. Now, what I want to do now, I need to get a couple of hull repairs. Now they're really expensive. Whenever you go to a free port, you're lucky if there's any there, and if there are, They're very expensive, but I don't like travelling around with too few repairs. I'm just going to top up there just so I've got 20 hull repairs, so I can afford that with the money I got from the sugar now. And now I go to fleet. Now what I want to do is I want to move it to these docks. Now I'm a bit nervous about it because I don't want to lose the ship. So I'm not sure exactly how this works. I just want to see whether it had any modules on it or anything like that. But reading this, all items in warehouse and all dock ships will be lost if you leave port. So I'm pretty sure I can move it to the docks without losing it. But you can take ships only in ports where you have an outpost. So I can't do that. At least I couldn't at this point. I believe that has now changed and that there is a way you can move ships temporarily to a dock in a free port even if you don't have the outpost. Chop and change things around. Obviously if you leave the port you would lose the ship, but I believe that after the last part you can now move ships temporarily to the docks and then re-import them back into your fleet even when you don't have an outpost. I think that is the case. So I arrived back in Bensalem with the frigate in the fleet. It's a really nice looking port, Bensalem. They are built on the cliffside there. Enter the port. You can see I've got a few little bits and bobs in there. And now I can dismiss the move to docks. That one I work because I have an outpost here. And then I can jump in the frigate and have a look what it's got. No permanent upgrades, but it does have these long cannons in there. They're worth quite a bit of money, and you know that could come in useful. That's not a bad ship. I could stick a few upgrades on there yourself. You see, I've stocked up on a few. You know, possibility I could use that ship. We'll see. Now, taking an enemy frigate in a surprise isn't always that straightforward. I've come across this guy here. Now, he's actually a bit damaged as well. But you can see he's replenished his crew. He's on 295 crew. And he's a higher rank. And turns out a lot better player. So this one was a lot more difficult. And all I really want to show you here is just how you can sort of tag players, and in the surprise you can sort of probe and find out what they've got, make sure you know they've got repairs and they've got rum, and you know, see what kind of player they are, and you know, if a battle goes against you, you've always got the ability to disengage, but you can go, you can have a little look, you can chain their sails for a bit and sort of sound them out. And then if it turns out that you know that they're going to be too much of a tough proposition for you, the surprise has got the speed for you to be able to disengage and get away. I'm not sure whether this guy's running away or not. He's turning. I'll see if we can get some chain on him. Here he goes. Right, check. He's missing. Well, I mean, he hardly hit me there, and I'm still down to 93% sales, so that's not looking good. See if I can do a bit better here. Well, 11 sales, he's down 95, well I'm down to 89. Oh come on, I get a grip, that was yeah, he's wrecking me. 83. Those bigger cannons, they really tell, even with the chain in. I could struggle, I think. I'm doing an early repair. Let's see if he's got any rig repairs. See what he's got, whether he's got repairs or not first. Let's get this chain off. He's in irons. Going to put a bit of distance between this because I don't want to overcommit yet, because if he has got repairs then this is going to be very difficult, so let's put a bit of distance behind him. Let's see if I can get behind him from here and maybe hit him with the barrel chasers. Let's see what he does. He's not repaired yet, but he could be waiting. But meanwhile my cooldown's going down. I don't have that many rig repairs, but I'm back up to 100 and he's not repaired yet, so let's go back in and probe him a bit more. Okay, looks like he's going for another chain then. Turn towards with that. Let's try and stay on his stern. Well, he doesn't have any stern chasers, so while I'm here, I've got the advantage.
Evening.
Hey man, how you doing? So I'm just fighting a frigate and losing.
Did a mission?
No, a player, an English player at Belize.
Ah, okay. I shall hush until you get done.
Cheers.
Instead of speaking and expecting a response. You bastard, why aren't you talking back?
He's winning. He's just got too much firepower. Those chains are just absolutely wrecking me when he hits me with them. Absolutely wrecking me. But I'm not sure he's got any repairs. This is my only hope, is that he hasn't brought rig repairs. Wrecked me again though. Four damage for that. That's ridiculous.
My wife's telling me a story, so.
6. What the fuck is going on? I've got shit cannons on. I just can't do any damage to his sails.
Hang on, I gotta go help my wife do something.
Okay, man.
Alright, she figured it out.
I'm losing.
Still crowded.
He's not done a sail repair yet.
Really?
It does make me wonder that he hasn't got any, but I've run out now. And he's fucking up my hull now as well.
What are you in, a resume?
Surprise.
Okay.
Oh no, yeah, he's repairing. He's repairing. Yeah, let's fuck that then. That ain't gonna work. Yeah, and I don't have any sail repairs left, so that's me done. See, I did 10 sail damage with all those ball shots. With the ball shots out the rear, and yet I was doing like 6 with a full broadside of chain. Now, admittedly, I've got longs in the stern, so that's probably going to help, and his sails are turned directly towards me, and I was, and when I was doing the broadsides, they were at an angle, so I was probably missing. So I disengaged from that battle. Once you've run out of repairs, it's dicing with death to go back in and continue probing, because if your sails get chained up again and you're unable to repair, then it's going to be more difficult to escape. But just to illustrate there, that's the beauty of the surprise. You can probe, you can have a look, but it's got the speed at all those different sailing points that you can just repair your sails and you'll be able to get away. So just to illustrate that, really, it remains to be seen how easy that is now that the new patch has come in and the speed mods have been nerfed. But you can see here that didn't stop me from having another guy. This is the same guy. I caught him, came into a mission that he was running. There were 2 AI ships on my side. I think it was a Mercury and a Navy brig perhaps. But in all honesty, they didn't contribute much. But what it did do was make him a lot more defensive. And you can see here now I managed to strip off the back of his armour with a couple of stern rakes. I managed to chain him a couple of times. And I've got him down to 114 crew. Now, unfortunately, I've at this point completely run out of rig repairs. And so he's actually faster than me at this point. I'm not able to chase him down and go for the boarding. But it was a bit frustrating because had I carried just a few more rig repairs, it could have been a very different story, and I think I might have had a good chance of taking that frigate. But again, it's a really tight balancing act. I mean, I think I'm probably carrying too few repairs at the moment. But when you're in a cheap ship and you're only just sort of reaching that maximum speed, every single repair that you carry is slowing you down, and that makes you a lot more vulnerable to gankers and revenge fleets and so forth. So I really can't afford to carry as many as perhaps I would if I had boven winds and crooked hull refit and copper plating and all the rest of it. I really have to be careful about how many repairs I carry, and in this case I just didn't have enough to finish the job. Now, I just want to show you something else quickly. I had this lynx up in Bensalem in the Belize area in the Gulf of Honduras, and I'd had a lot of success with it. I had it at Matanzas before, and I'd done quite well in it and had a few laughs in it, and I'd got sort of 5 or 6 kills in it. But the problem I always had was capturing these traders' lynxes, which I thought they would have been ideal for, but I've had a real problem doing it. And you can see here I've absolutely wrecked his sails now. I mean, to be fair, the guy was a pretty good sailor. He was a lot better than I was, but I had a lot more repairs, so I've managed to whittle him down. He was a good laugh as well, in fairness, so I had a lot of fun doing this. But you can see here how I managed to get in front of him. Now you can hear me laughing there on the microphone, but it's just actually ridiculous. He's just pushing me along. He's only got 37% sail, and he's just completely barging my ship out of the way, and he runs away. It was a bit embarrassing, funny, but I'm not sure that's quite right. I think perhaps I should have stopped him there. I mean, I know the lynx isn't heavy, but I can't see how he would have had the power just to barge me out of the way like that with 37% sail. But of course the big mistake I made there was that I hadn't done any boarding prep. Now previously I thought that obviously not doing your boarding prep is a bad idea, but I thought the only penalty to that would be the lack of preparation when you actually got into the boarding minigame. But what I've since realised is that if you don't do your boarding prep, you cannot actually board. The G doesn't come up for the grappling hooks. Now ironically that's a good thing for me, because now I know that you have to do the boarding prep in order to board someone. Hopefully I shall no longer forget. Now you can see I'm in Bensalem here, and I just happened to open Nation Chat, and I see here all this stuff about port battles, Morgan's Bluff and Nassau. Now these are quite important to me. I've told you how valuable these conquest marks are. So I decide I'll go to that. It's in a few hours' time. I've got to stop playing, but I'll be back on later on before these port battles start. You see the one, that's 7 so it's about sort of 4 hours from the time I was playing. And then the one at Nassau there, sort of 30 minutes later. So I think, well, I'll go along to these. I've already got an outpost at Morgan's Bluff with a gold mine there and a couple of ships. So it's definitely worth going to defend that. It's quite a long sail right across the top of Cuba. So, I've got quite a way to go. Now I've got this Mercury here. It's not the machine gun one, which I lost in the Yucatan Peninsula to that surprise. But this is another one which I managed to steal at Belize. So I decided to take this down because this is the best ship to use for the port battles. So I'll go down in this. I'll AFK sail it up to the sort of northern tip of Cuba. Just while I make a cup of coffee, have a bite to eat, and then I'll come back and then change course to go to Morgan's Bluff, and then get a bit of work done for half an hour in the time it takes me to get there, and then park up at Morgan's Bluff, and then log back in for the port bottle. At least that's the plan. And so off I head to Morgan's Bluff for the port battle. And so I have my cup of coffee and my sandwich, and I come back to the computer. It's probably about sort of 10 minutes, 20 minutes later, and this is what I find. Well, you can see I get back in time for a little bit of the boarding, but it's all over. This guy's in a surprise. He's got loads of crew. He's got Marines. There isn't really very much I can do. But I managed to kill a few of his crew. But the Mercury is lost. No, I'm really not too bothered about losing a Mercury. That really doesn't matter at all. I will have to replace it when I get to Morgan's Bluff, but they're not particularly expensive ships, so there's really no bother. All I'm really worried about, as you can see from the chat here, is I'm really hoping I get a good teleport, because if I manage to teleport to Las Tortugas, then I would have cut out a big part of my journey. But if I end up in Tumbado, then I'm going to have to sail a bit further, which will be a little bit of pain. And hold my breath. And it's Tumbado. So off I go to the long journey to Morgan's Bluff from Tumbado. It's pretty straight all the way, but I'm going to have to do it in the Cutter of Shame. So you can see here I'm arriving at Nassau. Now I did go to Morgan's Bluff, but I didn't manage to enter that port battle. Now the pirates actually won that one because of a glitch in the game. There was a bug, and more of the pirates managed to enter the port battle than the Swedes. It was actually 27 to 23, I think. So the pirates did win that one. You can see all the Mercuries here assembled at Nassau, and I did record this, but I'm not going to bother showing you this battle. But the pirates lost this one, lost Nassau, and then a few days later the Swedes managed to get up hostility at Morgan's Bluff, and they took that, and they managed to take Georgetown in the south of the Bahamas, and the Danes took Grand Turk. So it was heavy losses for the pirates there. Now, if you've watched any of the previous episodes, you'll know that I don't really think that the pirates should be a nation anyway. So in all honesty, I couldn't care less about those pirates losses. I did have to close my gold mine at Morgan's Bluff. I moved as much gold as I could up to Mortimer Town. I've got a big stash of gold there, and I had to close the outpost at Morgan's Bluff. But really, that's the only impact it's had on me, and I'm not really that bothered. Now, the main reason this is happening is because the Swedes are just that much more organised at the moment. They had, I know from the live stream that they had a sort of FC kind of character who was directing the whole thing. They were all in TeamSpeak together. They'd already pre-built White Oak Mercuries with carronades, a few of them with longs, and they were just that much more organised. There was no question that they were going to win those port battles. Now, I'm pretty sure the writing was already on the wall for all of this, but another thing that may have been a factor is the death of the Sorry clan. The Sorry clan is no more, as you may or may not know if you came off you in Pirates. They were the dominant pirate group. Their leader has decided to go off and play another game, which I'm not going to shed too many tears about. And now, effectively, there was already a splinter group from Sorry called Plan B, and I believe most of the Sorry members have now migrated over to Plan B. And that's only really good news for the Pirate Nation, because I've spoken to some of the Plan B guys and the guys that run that, and they are much friendlier and much more sort of inclusive bunch of lads, and that can only be good for everybody's gameplay. Sorry are no more, in my opinion. That's not to denigrate any of the guys in there. I'm sure in fact, I know there are loads of really cool guys in Sorry, but I think things are a lot better now that Plan B are now the dominant group. But the one upshot is that Plan B aren't really that interested in port battles, and so that's maybe one of the reasons why these islands have lost, because we don't really have a large organised clan that are protecting the pirate ports. Like I say, it really doesn't bother me either way, but that may change. Plan B may be forced into taking back some of the ports in order to make sure that the pirates are getting all the necessary resources. We'll have to wait and see what happens. One interesting aside to all of that is that literally a day or 2 days later, the new patch came in. And as a part of that patch, they built in the ability for a clan leader to pass the leadership of the clan to another person within the clan. And before that, it wasn't able to do that. So I can't help wondering and chuckling over the possibility that had the leader of Sorry just left it a couple more days, he would have been able to hand over the whole thing to his second in command, and Sorry would still be going, but just by 1 or 2 days they weren't able to do that, and so they gave all their stuff to Plan B, and everyone went to Plan B, and now it's under new leadership. Now, that leads me to talk a little bit about the patch. Obviously, one of the other things is that conquest marks are no more. They've completely revamped that. There are now something called victory marks, and apparently everybody gets them, whoever's controlling the map. And there's a new table about how the map's controlled and how many territories have been won and lost, and whoever's top at the end of a certain period receives a victory mark. I don't, I mean, as you know, RVR isn't really something I'm involved with. I think it sounds like an improvement to me. I thought the whole conquest mark pension thing was a bit daft. So there's a change. I think most people are in agreement. It's probably a little bit better. So overall, I thought it was a good patch. However, there are two glaring aspects of it which I really didn't like, which I'll just quickly show you. Now, I'll just explain what's happening here. I've been tagged by a guy fleeting a Renome and something else and a Lynx. So he was going terribly slow in the open run. I was just sort of messing about, and he managed to get a tag from a long way. I've had absolutely no chance whatsoever of catching me. I easily leave the battle. But now look what happens. They've done this new invisibility and this new speed where the wind doesn't have an effect, and you go a lot faster. Now, I just think this is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I'm going against the wind, and look at the speed I'm going against the wind. And then I'm going across, and here you see, I find this surprise, and the poor guy, I'm completely invisible. He has no idea that I'm here. He's going on his merry way, and here I am in absolute warp drive mode with my covert ops cloak activated, and it's just absolutely no problem at all. Just to swing round. Look at the speed I'm still doing. Still invisible for 15 seconds. I don't do this very well, but I've still got plenty of time to get behind him. And you can see I'm going to come out of invisibility right behind him, and it's really, really easy for me to get a tag, even though there's a delay after you come out. He's not able to get away, and he's got absolutely no chance, and I'm able to cap him. And the poor guy would have just seen this pirate surprise just appear out of nowhere directly behind him, which, in my opinion, is utterly ridiculous. And so I tagged him, and I chained his sails down to virtually nothing on my stern, raked him, and I killed all his crew. And then, I spoke to him in the battle instance, and I could tell he was a new player because he didn't really know what he was doing. He told me that he'd only just started playing again after the wipe. Now, I know in the past I've sort of changed my opinion of this because now, because the PvP marks are changing, you don't actually have to kill people anymore, and I think that's better. So I let him go because I didn't really need his surprise, and I don't have to kill people to get the PvP marks, which were really important before anymore. So I don't really see much point in killing a player who is obviously still learning the game. And this leads me to the second thing that I didn't really like about the new patch, and this was the introduction of a leaderboard. Now, there's now a leaderboard which shows the top, apparently, PvP players, and you score points for the ships that you sink, and whoever's top at the end is the winner. Now, there was talk of them getting some rewards, but I don't think anybody's actually getting any rewards at the moment. But the problem with what I have with this is that it just encourages that kind of play. It encourages people to pick on new players and just sink people purely just to get their name up in lights on the PvP leaderboard. And today I saw the current leader on the PvP Lauder hanging around outside KPR. Now, the reason he was doing this is because he knows that most of the Brits have gone up to Belize, and KPR is full of brand new players who have absolutely no idea about the game and are happily sailing around KPR thinking that it's safe, and it quite frankly isn't. And people that want to get on this PvP leaderboard are just patrolling the area like sharks and killing brand new players who have no idea what they're doing, purely just to get points to be on this leaderboard. And I don't think that really encourages good play. I don't think that's good for newer players. I don't think that really encourages good PvP. And going back to the warp drive covert ops cloak trick, the same thing was done on me. So I was on a trip coming back from Belize to Mortimer Town. I was very close to Mortimer Town. I was against the wind and I was crawling along. I was aware of what was around me. And then all of a sudden, a Danish surprise, I think it was, came out of his covert ops cloak directly behind me. His surprise was much faster than mine. I had no way of getting away. He got a very good tag on me because he was right next to me when he came out of invisibility. And he managed to chain me down. It was quite a good battle. I made a good job of trying to escape a vastly superior surprise. He was much faster than me, and he had £9 longs on, so God only knows what kind of expensive upgrades and how many knowledge slots he had open. But I was fine about that. The battle was absolutely fine. But the method in which I was caught and tagged, I just don't. It's just absolutely daft. Now, another quick thing is just a correction. In the last episode, you would have heard us talking about the fact that we thought the camera had been nerfed and you could no longer do it really quickly. Now, that, in fact, isn't the case. What you do is you use the mouse wheel. You scroll the mouse wheel up, and that allows you to move the camera much faster. You can see I've got it right high up in the air, and I'm actually, so you can see I'm moving along quite quickly, and my ship is sort of sailing along behind me. And if I hadn't hit the shallows, you have to make sure you're not hitting shallows. But you can actually sail the ship and then move the camera actually faster than the ship, and use the camera that way. Thank you very much to Captain Pilo of the Spanish Nation for pointing that one out for me. Now, one of the positive things that came from losing my surprise is it forced me to find a replacement. You can see here this fur surprise. Now, I built a level 2 shipyard, and I built this myself, and it absolutely cost peanuts. Now, I've put trim speed on it, and I've put optimised ballast on it in the 2 knowledge slots, and I whacked on a Bowfinger Gazelle, which is really cheap. You can see I've got a few repairs in. Look, it does 14.95. Now it turns terribly. It really is an awful ship. It's paper thin. It doesn't turn, but it's completely cheap. Now you see I've got upgrades here. I've got a crooked hull refit there, which I picked up in a mission, but I'm not going to put this on here. The point of this ship is that it's totally disposable. I can build as many of them as quickly and as often as I like, as more than I can possibly need, and this frees me up to go out and try different aspects of PvP, and I've no longer got the fear of losing ships because I can replace them easy, and I really couldn't care less on whether I lose them. Now whether this works as well after the speed mod nerf remains to be seen, but the principle should be the same. Now with the minutes taken out, I managed to cap this trader's brig. The guy was quite high rank, he wasn't particularly polite in chat, so I had no qualms about taking it, and I needed it to evacuate my gold out of Morgan's Bluff. Now there are two main bits of advice I think I can give you based upon sort of what's happened in this video. Now the first is, and it's something I learned very early on playing EVE Online, which I played for quite a while, and that is don't sail what you can't afford to lose. Please don't go around fitting up really tasty blingy ships when you're not experienced, because if you take them out there's still a very good chance you'll lose them, particularly with this covert ops speed warp thing that's going on that I hope the devs are going to remove pretty quickly, and if you lose that ship then you're going to lose a lot of assets, and it's going to really depress you, and it's going to be a pain in the arse. So never take out what you can't afford to lose, and in fact when you leave a port, assume that ship is lost. If you're going out to PvP, assume that ship is lost, and make sure that you can afford to replace it if and when it does become lost. And the second bit of advice, which you might think runs contrary to the first, but really doesn't, is don't be afraid to lose ships. Go ahead, fit up ships, cheap ships that you can afford to replace, that you can build yourself preferably, and go out there and PvP in them, because that is the best way to learn. Don't be afraid to lose ships. There's no shame in it, and you are going to become a better player by doing that. Now there's a real temptation in this game just to keep mission running, keep accumulating wealth, building blingy fancy ships, but then you're too afraid to go out and PvP with them and use them against other players in the open world. So don't get caught up in that perpetual mission running. Build, buy, fit cheap ships that you can replace, that you can afford to lose, and go out there and fight other players and lose those ships, become a better player, and enjoy everything that the game's got to offer, and then really enjoy the game and really enjoy the PvP aspect of the game. Now I have some more PvP footage which really illustrates this, but we're reaching the magic hour for this episode, so I couldn't possibly fit it in this episode. Now what it is basically nearly hours worth of continuous footage of me in the Gulf of Honduras near Belize, messing with the British, and I'm in this fur surprise with the small medium cannons, which absolutely cost nothing at all, and which I couldn't care less I lost, and it really does sort of illustrate what a lot of fun you can have in a ship that's really bad, really cheap, really paper thin, but it doesn't really matter. It just shows that if you just go out there and PvP in it, lots of things can happen. You can have a real good laugh. So what I've done is I've created a sort of companion episode, which I've called a gameplay episode. And it's not an episode like this one edited or with narration. It's just a continuous piece, about an hour's gameplay. And it just sort of shows you what a lot of fun you can have PvPing in a cheap ship. It's not going to be particularly enlightening for experienced players, but if an experienced player does watch it and you've got any pointers for my play, they'd be gratefully received in the comments, providing they're constructive. And for the newer players, hopefully there's a few pointers there for you. You can learn one or two things from it. I should reiterate again that I'm not an experienced player. I am a beginner, so I do make a lot of mistakes, but hopefully there's something there for newer players. Maybe they can pick up on a few tactics and so on. Now, the only other thing I have to say is that this will be the penultimate episode. The next episode will be episode 10. That's a nice round number. I'm not sure I've got that much more to offer in terms of information for new players. and it's taking up too much of my time. I'm not going to be able to game as much as I was over the next few months, and so anytime I do have, I want to spend playing the game rather than doing the videos. So the episode 10 will be the last episode, at least for a little while. Hopefully it will end in a crescendo of epic PvP, but of course it might not. We'll have to wait and see. But either way, I will continue to post these simpler gameplay episodes. So thanks very, very much for watching. I'm Hullabaloo. I'll see you in the next episode. Ahar, matey!